from a non-dual perspective. Is this reality an illusion?
Since consciousness is the foundation or the basis of everything projected on top of it. As soon as we say projection, it's not real. This foundation is metaphorically compared to the screen. And in this screen, you have these motion pictures coming and appearing and going away, fading away. Coming and going of the metaphoric images makes no difference to the screen. When you are dreaming, Amira, during the mode of dream, it is real. I don't know whether I'm dreaming you. I may be having this conversation in the dream. For consciousness to constitute its reality, for it to unfold into the manifold, it has to first express itself through space and time. When you are asking the question of why this projected reality, if this is not even absolutely real, why did it even start? It has never started. Why am I dreaming? No, you have not dreamt.
In the context of self-realization, like how is the tantric approach used for liberation?
The yogic practitioner, tantric practitioner, he can be in the world and not be in the world at the same time. What Tantra does is it allows you to recognize that you are powerful. At the end of the day, the world as it is has never come to being, has never existed. Thank you so much for having me here.
Of course, it's our pleasure. It's such an honor having you here, Dr. Timalsina. You've been a much-awaited guest, and for viewers who may not know, you have a Ph.D. in Advaita Vedanta, and you are an expert in consciousness studies. You're also a professor in New York, so you are an ocean of wisdom, and I'm really excited that you'll be able to share that wisdom today with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Of course. Dr. Timalsina, I would love to start off the conversation by talking about the doctrine of appearance, and also in the context of what I've recently been studying, which is a Mandukya Karaka. Essentially, this world, what we see now, this waking stage, is compared to the dreaming stage, where in a way it's not real. Can you talk about, from a non-dual perspective, is this reality an illusion?
What is illusion? What is real? Because we are contrasting two things. Something is illusion, something is real. From the Advaita Vedanta perspective, since consciousness or Chaitanya is the foundation or the basis of everything projected on top of it. As soon as we say projection, it's not real. So if you have the screen and the pictures, motion picture projected on the screen, the pictures have nothing to do with the screen. The screen makes it possible for the pictures to appear. In the absolute non-dual state, we cannot even create a dichotomy between real and illusory. Because if there is nothing as illusory, there is only what is real. But if you say there is something illusory, then there is something real, and something else illusory, then there are two entities. So illusory by definition cannot exist on its own. But let's go back to what is the nature of the projected reality is. From the standpoint of the Advaita Vedanta, consciousness as such is the foundation. And in this foundation is metaphorically compared to the screen. And in this screen, you have these motion pictures coming and appearing and going away, fading away. Coming and going of the metaphoric images makes no difference to the screen. Even the disturbing of the pictures, some horror pictures, do not make the screen horrific. Or some lovely motion picture doesn't make any difference to the screen as such.
When we go to watch a movie, a lot of times we feel excited when we're watching a tragedy movie or a scary movie. So that is compared to this life.
Exactly.
That we are the screen, pure consciousness.
Yes, yeah. Okay. So You yourself are that screen that is never contaminated by whatever the pictures are coming and going. So this is the non-dual model of consciousness from the Advaita perspective. From the Trika Shaiva or Kashmiri Shaivism perspective, consciousness is not a passive screen. That screen itself is also constituting the images. Not just that, that screen itself is constituting the observer, the subject. Both subject and object are co-constituted in that singular field we call Shiva. So what does this mean for the reality? What is real, what is illusory then? So you have to think of the world as a configuration of, let us say, conquering streams of energies, like if you have like a convergence of different lines in one particular point, different energies coming to convergence, and then certain entities come into being. The word we use is dravya, substance, entity. What is dravya? Guna sandrava, coming together of the tropes of different qualities. So all these different energies come together and constitute an entity for the time being. When that passes through in the flow of time, then we have a different entity. What is this? A microphone, some plastics, some electronic devices, some wires, all these things co-constituted in the form of the microphone. So the world as such is constantly changing, and that is not something outside of consciousness. This is within the field of consciousness that these are being co-constituted. And from the Kashmiri Shaivite or Trika Shaiva perspective, the world as such is a manifold configuration within the field that we call consciousness. Subject and object are co-constituted within the singular field that is dynamic, that's pulsating, and that is spontaneous, that's free, autonomous. And so therefore, what is real? What is unreal? Real and unreal are likewise projected within that singular field. There is nothing in contrast of real to be unreal. Something is real for the time being, and as long as it is real, it's real, So I'll give you one example. I know I'm taking time for this first question.
No, it's good.
What happened? I was taking a walk in Los Angeles Beach one fine morning, consoling my friend who was just recently divorced after his 2 decades of marriage. And the question he asked struck me forever. The first question he asked, I knew them both very well. Do you think she ever loved me? Dude, what are you talking about? And the next question he asked, do you think I ever loved her? You see, this is like when you go to the bottom rock of your fragmentation, you start questioning every single thing that's happening in your life or that has ever happened in your life. You question your past. It feels like a dream. That 20 years of life spent together feels like one single moment of a dream. But when that dream lasted, it was real. It was mutually felt. When you are dreaming, Amira, during the mode of a dream, it is real. Otherwise, why are you haunted by some horrific images? So, like Vasubandhu, one of the foremost Yogacara philosopher, gives an example of arousal. Why would these beautiful women give arousal in the dream? So that he's comparing dream reality with the waking reality. I'm flipping the coin. I'm saying he is trying to compare this world to the dream world and say both are unreal, I'm flipping the coin and I'm saying that even the dream world is real. Because even in dream, there are actual events happening. You can put wire, you can put a subject to the dream state and then make him go through fMRI, and then you can watch, you can observe the neuronic activities there. Real events are happening there,
Of course.
The subject is undergoing all the actions. Have you ever seen like these puppies when they go to sleep and then they're wiggling their little paws? Oh my gosh, I've seen them. It's so beautiful. So they're running in their dream, but the body is still acting. They're still moving their paws, So yes, in the dream, we are still in the same bed, but a lot of activities are happening within. Our neurological activities are the same, our cognitive functions are the same, and it's only our reality, the everyday, day-to-day reality is different. When we wake up, it is not real. So therefore, we have to rethink what do we mean by real. As far as my grasping of the event is concerned, I was happy when the dream was good. I was unhappy when something happened that was not conducive of my experience. I was scared. I was aroused, So everything that can happen in your conscious world, in this reality, the same thing can happen in your dream reality. But that doesn't mean that I'm agreeing with Gaudapada. I'm actually flipping the perspective. So the very basis is like, then what is real?
Right.
I'm just keeping the question alive. Okay.
No, it's important to actually understand the definition of real, right? Because I think Gaudapada basically, when we're talking about non-duality specifically, Advaita Vedanta, they say that the definition of unreal is, I think, two main things. One, that it does not have its independent existence, right? So whatever is happening, I guess, within the dream or us speaking right now or whatever these actions are, without consciousness, they would not have their existence, right? And then the second thing is they are temporary. So there is no beginning or end of that action or that feeling, right? It's very impermanent.
Yeah.
So are those two, according to you, good definitions of something that is unreal?
Again, these two criteria do not help us to differentiate between the waking and the dreaming reality. Because both these criteria apply even to my waking reality. These are also transitory.
Right.
They may last a bit longer than the dream, but they are not permanent. Our waking reality is not permanent either. And so we need a different definition for reality. I would say efficiency, meaning causal efficiency. We call that in Sanskrit artha kriya karita, meaning they can produce effect. Something unreal should not be able to produce an effect. Your fantasy woman should not be able to bear a real child for you. Your fantasy money should not be able to buy you New Jersey. So something real can give rise to something real. Something unreal cannot give rise to something real. But if we go to that definition, let's see. Would this apply to dream? Why I'm saying even dream has certain degree of reality is because even dream is able to give rise to something real. That is my pain, that is my fear, that's my happiness. In that time, you can say it's not real because it's not everlasting. There is nothing everlasting.
Right.
Lasting in the sense of a duration in different modes of time. Everything in the world has a finite existence. Therefore, if we push hard to reality, then only the Brahman, and that's where Advaita Vedanta wants to take you, that only the Brahman, pure consciousness itself is real, and everything else is not real because it is not everlasting. So we share something real has to be lasting forever. So what I'm saying is something real should be able to unfold and enfold in all the new modifications.
Mhm.
Why am I saying that? Because if consciousness is real, then it should be able to endure over time, meaning keep manifesting in whatever the forms it so desires and still exist. So if your goal is real, you should still have that goal as goal no matter what particular structure or shape you mold it into. You can make a ring, you can make a chain, you can make God knows whatever ornaments you so desire. But the goal as such continues to be in all the new modifications. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's clear.
So therefore, consciousness itself endures through different modifications, even if it manifests in the form of your dream. I don't know whether I'm dreaming you. I'm having this conversation with you in my dream. Hypothetically, I may be having this conversation in the dream. Even if that is the case, I'm not going to say, therefore, it is not real. I don't care whether it's a dream or reality. To me, seeing you right in front of me, to be able to have this conversation with me, we're having this intersubjective understanding. I think I'm understanding some of your questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are understanding each other's.
Right.
To me, that's real enough. But that doesn't mean that we are permanently made in this form. Reality unfolds in multitudes of forms. Reality doesn't need to be static like a rock. Reality is dynamic. Reality is self-enfolding and unfolding. Reality itself is able to manifest into the manifold without rejecting its singularity. What do I mean by that? Just like water, no matter what particular shape you make it into, like you pour into a cup or a big jug or whatever, the water takes the form of such and so structure. Water doesn't have its own rigid form.
Right. It's flexible.
It's flexible, but doesn't mean water is not real. Consciousness itself doesn't have its own particular shape or structure. It can unfold into whatever the form. Now I'm seeing you, my consciousness is structured in your form. I'm speaking these words, my consciousness is structured in the form of these words. And finally, I'm trying to
Drink coffee.
This bitterness, this tannin, giving me this satisfaction. Why do I have to say this satisfaction is so unreal? I'm experiencing, my consciousness is taking the shape of this feeling bitterness, but bitterness can be very undesirable. But this is very desirable bitterness.
Right.
So consciousness takes all these forms, but consciousness does not have its own predetermined form. And that to me is real. The real is something that is capable of manifesting in endless forms without expunging itself. There is no limits to which you can give shape to water. Every new form, every new shape can come up.
So before I move on to my next question, I want to clarify something. What my understanding of Kashmiri Shaivism is, right? That I guess compared to the more still view of Brahman or consciousness in Advaita Vedanta, Kashmiri Shaivism views consciousness as spontaneous, as moving, as dynamic. But like you meant, it still falls under non-duality, correct?
Yeah,
because it is
correct.
all one.
Yeah, it's all one.
It's not like there is that dynamic consciousness and then it's you drinking the coffee is different. It is all one.
It's
right?
all happening within that.
Within that concept. Okay, I want to clarify that. Now, let's talk a little bit about space and time. Science has been getting onto these subjects very recently now as well. Are space and time real as we see it, or what is happening there in context to consciousness?
Yeah, that's a very deep question. So, in the ultimate sense, what is consciousness? When I say this potential to manifest in endless forms, I'm referring to the potency. I'm describing consciousness based on what it can be. There may never be the definition of consciousness as it is. We are calling it luminosity based on what it can reveal, but that is also not as it is, luminosity only in light of what it can illumine. So the same way, what is consciousness? Consciousness is the freedom, the capacity to unfold into manifold, to become me and you. But before it becomes me and you, something has to happen. It has to map reality. How does it map reality? It gives rise to space and time. Space is its extension. Time is its extension. How does it happen? Spontaneity, kalakya swatantra, I mean kala means time. And we are calling kala time as swatantra, freedom. Because it's this temporality that allows consciousness to manifest into the manifold sequentially. Just because something can happen doesn't mean that anything can happen at any mode of time. There's only limited ways that things can happen. Right now, I have a finite capacity to manifest in this reality while I'm on Earth with certain gravity, with certain physical laws. Hypothetically, if I were in a completely different universe with completely different physical laws, I would be able to do something completely I can't even imagine now. Because all the laws of physics would not apply. The laws of physics that apply to this particular reality within this space and time. So therefore, for consciousness to constitute its reality, for it to unfold into the manifold, it has to first express itself through space and time. Therefore, consciousness itself is that time and space. Because in the non-dual philosophy, you cannot find something categorically opposite. So time and space are neither illusory or non-existent. Time and space are rather an extension of this very pure consciousness. So first of all, it has to manifest itself as space and time. And within that space and time, we can configure the world, we can configure the subjects, acting in assuming particular roles, So we have this house, we have this distance. So everything is happening within that spatio-temporality that is within consciousness. Therefore, if the extension in the form of space were real, so many new theories in physics, like a string theory and all, they're putting into question whether all the theories we have of distance and all these things are even real. And then somebody will be so smart and quickly jump, therefore it is not real, it's all illusion. No, it's power. It's creating as much of reality as any reality can be. But at the same time, it's not violating the foundational principle that all that exists is consciousness only. It's within the very field of consciousness that we have the potential of spatio-temporality. That is what allows it to delimit itself. That delimitation is what makes it possible for manifesting into the manifold. And this is what our everyday reality is. And therefore, what is space and time? It's an expression of consciousness, but at the same time, it's the foundation for the manifold. It's the reality that our everyday reality has multiple layers. If the first layer is consciousness, the second layer is space and time.
Okay, that makes sense. When we talk about Advaita Vedanta, right? Basically, the whole goal is to be essentially liberated in this lifetime so we don't have to continue the cycle of rebirth or reincarnation. In Kashmiri Shaivism, how is that kind of the same ultimate reality or goal? Or how does it describe the process of reincarnation and coming back, life after life, and what really happens when the physical body dies? Can you talk about that?
Because Kashmiri Shaivism is the discipline of freedom. Freedom is twofold. I have even discussed this before. Freedom also implies the freedom to suffer. Meaning, you want to do something and it's not always fun.
Right.
Like babies, you give them this black coffee, I don't think they will enjoy as much as some candies.
No, they won't.
So my freedom allowed me to train my tongue, taste buds, into liking the tannins. So you may train yourself to like the world. So what does this even mean? You have to come back here. Nobody is throwing you back anywhere. So to attain freedom means to be able to be here or not to be here. Or to be here and not be here at the same time. How can you even do that? We are just only thinking in light of this mathematical computational model of yes or no, 0 and 1, very robotic.
Right.
But in this absolute freedom, in Bhairava state, that is where the sadhaka, the yogic practitioner, tantric practitioner is. He can be in the world and not be in the world at the same time. He can assume these bodies and enjoy being in the bodies. Even in Patanjali's yoga, Patanjali, in the last chapter, he talks about projection of multiple subjectivities. Patanjali gives one beautiful picture where a yogi wakes up to realize that he had to enjoy or suffer so many lifetimes of doing such and so things. Some were wonderful. He had to go to heaven and enjoy some beautiful women, and he had to also suffer being a pig or whatever and being sacrificed somewhere, So the yogi can simultaneously embrace multiple subjectivities at the same time. Even Patanjali says that. So from the Trikasaiva perspective, you can be all the subjects. You recognize yourself as all the subjects. So everything that is happening within you, not outside of you. So what can he do or what he cannot do? Does he have to come? He wants to come, he can come. He doesn't want to come, he doesn't have to come. It's like going to the party, like you have these. Somebody had a very bad experience going to a party and the boy is crying, I don't want to go there anymore. Mm-hmm. The people laugh at me, I don't fit in there. And then, okay, he doesn't have to go. No need to cry. But it's like childish, he had some bad experience being there, somebody making fun of him. And he's reacting to this for a whole life, that these people are horrible people. He's talking about them all the time. He had one bad experience. What if he gives another chance? Right. So the people are coming from this very pessimistic view regarding the world, that the world is, default as it is a place of suffering, a miserable hell, like the jail. The God wanted to put some scoundrels into the jail, and that's why he created the world. And it fits into the religious narrative, the fallen people. Like whichever the culture you go to, the world is constantly depicted as a miserable hole.
Yes.
And that is what is fundamentally wrong. That is what Trikasaivism is saying, that's fundamentally wrong. You are the problem, honestly speaking, not the world. Why are you the problem? You have these false expectations. So you want to go and you found the beautiful statue of a cow and you keep milking, doesn't give any milk, and then you start blaming the cow. Okay, kid, wake up, that's a sea statue, okay? So you are never going to get any milk out of the statue. So you impose false values on false things. That's what realization is here. From the Trikasaiva perspective, what does it mean? We still suffer. Why do we suffer? We impose false values onto something. That's why we suffer. I'm not saying there is no suffering. I suffer too. And I expect something that I should not be expecting. And no, I've read so much. Why do I expect? Come on, I'm just a human being, like any other. And I impose false values and false expectations onto something. And then things don't turn out the way they are. But somebody enlightened should never suffer. Right? I mean, but what is suffering now? What is suffering now? But somebody enlightened should never die. Is that what are you saying? The Buddha left home. You will see the Artha, he left home because he saw somebody dying. He saw somebody ill, and he saw somebody old.
And then a monk.
And what happened? Buddha got old, Buddha got ill, and Buddha died. Things, you just enlightened, not enlightened, doesn't matter. You just die.
That's the nature.
That's the nature of reality. You have to, things are bound to happen. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa died. He's not walking among us anymore. Ramana Maharshi died,
Cancer.
He's not just walking among us. So what is realization is like, oh, you are just yogi and how can you suffer? How can you have a disease? That's nonsensical. This is the laws, the material through which this body is made. All these amino acids bound in a string in our genetic structures are replicating, and they have a limit to which they can replicate, and no matter how many different ways we try to cheat death, the body is not immortal, and we get to go. Do we feel pain? Why is that horrible? I don't want to feel pain. I'm not saying I want to feel pain, but feeling pain is part of the mechanism, part of the process. That to me is realization, not that never feeling pain. Turn into rock, put some drugs, go to coma state. Is that realization? No, realization is to realize this is how it works. Just don't expect something that it cannot materialize. That's a realization. Whatever it can give, expect that, and that's a realization. So just when we realize the way the world is, everything should change upside down, and you are just in that absolute stillness and forever happy. Forever happiness is not as beautiful as we are told.
Yeah. It's not like enlightenment is like attaining or gaining something. It's more recognizing your true nature, and that is what liberates.
Yeah, I mean, we have these, now we are talking about virtual reality.
Right.
Actually, we may be able to put subjects into virtual reality very soon. Is it okay for us to put some subjects into virtual reality of a happy zone, happy state forever as long as they are alive? Let their bodies be fed with tubes, and then they are placed in the virtual reality where there is no suffering, because they are given this projected reality in which they are free to do anything they like. Is that what you call liberation?
Or bondage, even more.
That's worse. Then why would you choose suffering in the world rather than being in the virtual world of perpetual happiness? That perpetual happiness is just a projected happiness. So what about drug-induced states of happiness?
Mm-hmm.
At one point, that is what happened. In 70s, like all these people, they say, okay, what is the difference between yogic state and psychedelic states? They are happy, we are happy. It is the same deal. Maybe. If the whole point is to deny your being in the world, maybe there is no difference then. Just be in drug-induced state. Being in the world implies feeling pain and pleasure. Embrace that, and that's what we are talking about, realization from the Trikasaiva perspective. Being in the world, accepting, embracing your agency. But then we don't want to suffer. When you know the fire burns, then put your hand there and you can enjoy the fire. It's so much fun to have bonfire. If it's not a very hot day, you want to make some barbecue, whatever you want to do, just don't put yourself into that. So this is the fundamental problem of, oh, the fire burns, run away from it.
Yeah, we're conditioned to these pleasure and pain and the two opposites.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of taking
so therefore, just get out of these expectations. Meaning, these are the laws of the nature. No matter where we escape, we can't escape from the laws of the nature. Ramana Maharshi didn't escape the laws of nature. Neither did Buddha.
Right. Yeah. I know this might not be a right question to ask, but in Advaita Vedanta, right? Basically, this question comes up if someone reads some of the texts at why in the first place, right? Did everything happen? If Brahman or consciousness, and you can talk about it from both the viewpoints of in these non-dual schools. If consciousness was unmanifested, right, and it was happy or whatever the way it was, right, everything was fine, then why did it even decide to manifest into what we see now, which we call this world, right? These body-mind complexes and all the material things we say. Like, what was kind of the motive behind it? And the reason I said it was a wrong question is because essentially consciousness does not have any will, right? It's not like it makes a decision. So can you talk about that? Like, why did this ignorance arise in the first place? Like, why did we forget our true nature?
You mentioned Gaudapada in the beginning of our conversation. Yes. He's known for the doctrine of ajati. Ajati means no origins,
yes. No birth, no death.
Non-origination, no birth. So when you are asking the question of why this projected reality, if this is not even absolutely real, why did it even start? Now then, go to Gaudapada. It has never started. Why am I dreaming? No, you have not dreamt. From the moment you wake up to this non-dual nature, you realize that you were always in that pure and pristine form. You never were conditioned in any of these finite forms. From the Advaita perspective, if we are trying to, because the question comes from Advaita, yes, let's go to the serious teaching, because the ultimate teaching from Advaita is the ajati. Because all the other teachings, like the world is there, but is not real. That's not ultimate teaching.
Like Sankhya, which is still, that comes in duality.
Yeah. So because even if we are saying there is this world only for conventional reality, only for our conventions only, what we are trying to say is, at the end of the day, the world as it is has never come to being, has never existed. There never is any other reality than the absolute Brahman, from the Advaita point of view. So then even the question of why there is the reality, projected day-to-day reality, it is only for dream subjects, dream creatures. Like, you were dreaming, and in your dream there were some people who were hurting each other, like they were maybe cannibals. Let's make a horror dream. But then when you wake up, the question is, what happened to those cannibals is not even a good question.
They never existed.
They never existed. The same way, from the Advaita perspective, these projected subjects and their projected reality never existed. So therefore, Advaita as such is not a philosophy to explain our everyday reality. Advaita ultimately has to reject this projected reality to go back to that non-dual state of the Brahman. Therefore, when we are trying to navigate through this reality and that absolute foundation, we have to go to the Trika doctrine. Because in there we have this finite projected reality and the boundless, infinite, predetermined absolute Shiva consciousness. So only there we will find this explanation for the limited projection and the boundless absolute totality.
Hey guys, I just want to take a quick pause and introduce the sponsor of our podcast today, which is FLFE. FLFE is a wonderful service that raises the consciousness levels of the place where you are as well as your mobile device. it has worked wonders for me, and I highly recommend this service. I am going to recommend this link in the description below, and please do check it out. It is going to help you in so many ways. If you just want to energize the place where you're working from or your home, this is an incredible service. So do check out the product. Now back to the podcast. I want to talk about the creation of the universe from whatever perspective you want to talk about, but we're not talking about the Big Bang Theory. So what is a real answer to this? I think I read somewhere in Kashmiri Shaivism, there is some roadmap that you could maybe talk about something. I read somewhere about 36 tattvas that kind of describes the creation of the universe. Maybe you can talk about that as well. But I'd love to know like how what we see here appeared, right? Because the materialists believe in the Big Bang Theory, but you would know the truth.
So Big Bang or any other theory would be a description of the world without. From outside, we are observing the events and we are making theories based on what we observe. We are always outside of these events. What we are discussing is we are talking about the subject itself. Big Bang Theory is a theory, and to have that theory, you need someone to have that theory. We are talking about the consciousness that is theorizing the nature of reality. It doesn't matter what particular theory you come up with. I'm not saying Big Bang is wrong. Let this be the absolute theory. But for this theory to be true, it's a theory. For the theory to be true, there has to be someone theorizing. If there is nobody theorizing, how can there be any theory? So we are talking about consciousness that projects reality, including the theories that help us describe what reality is, what is the mechanism. So we have to, I'm trying to get you back to the source, the consciousness that is not only giving rise to material world, that is also making it possible for us to theorize material world. And so how do we theorize the material world and how do we project the world outside is in that, again, spontaneous, pure, simple, absolute consciousness being, we are assuming spontaneity. That's the singularity. Right now, we are divided, we are fragmented, we are limited, we are finite, and we want to recognize our fullness. That's given. When you are unhappy, you want to be happy. When you are hurt, you want to come back home and stay there quiet. That's given. Right. But then when you are home, you are in this absolute solitude, in absolute singularity, you desire to talk with somebody. You desire to have someone in your life that you can talk with. You desire to have something that you can taste, you can see, you can touch, you can be in the world. You desire the world. The world is the manifestation of your desire, therefore. We have the world of our desire. And this very desire allows us to move, to act, to become the agent. In the first primal state of this desiring in the form of acting, our desire is the desire of the totality. There is no separation between me and the world. I am the world. And this I assume to be many. How can I be many? For manifoldness requires time and space. Only in space that things can be many. Only in time that things can be projected many. The past is not the present, not the future. Whatever is happening right now, right here, is not what is happening right now in Nepal or in Calcutta. So space and time allows us to gives us the possibility of the manifold. And therefore, we have this space and time, we call this Deshadva and Kaladva. Desha means space, Adva is the course. The course of space, the course of time. In the course of time, we have what? We have first of all the phonemes, the sound in the form of the phonemes, like Om, for example, and then all the vowels and consonants come into being. We have the phonemes, and then we have the words, and we have sentences, Varna, Pada, Mantra. We have that what? In this space, we have Kala, the limiting factors. Tattva, the 36 categories. The 36 categories we are calling the earth, the water, the fire, the air, and the space, we are calling that an expression. Even the manifest sky is an expression within space, the desha. So therefore, akasha, the space that we encounter every day, is not the only space. Space itself is a possibility. Give me some space. When somebody says, we need some space for our expression. So the space is like, they don't give us any space to express ourselves. That doesn't mean like a little bit, chopped off place for them, So space is a possibility. Space is also power. Within that space, within that power, we constitute the sky, we constitute the fire or the water or the earth. So these tattvas, the elements, we should not think of this in some abstract vocabulary like in the classical metaphysics. If you go and then the head starts spinning, there's the Shiva, Shakti, Sadashiva, Ishvara, all these metaphysical entities, and then we get lost. Meaning either one has to get used to this metaphysics after training for several years, or they will completely misjudge the whole discipline, like where is that Shiva Tattva then, where we are talking about certain categories. And then for that, we have to first go back again to the basics of space and time. So this is all the categories exist within space and time. And again, we already discussed that exists in itself within the foundation of consciousness. Yeah.
Swami Vivekananda's disciple had asked the question of Maya to him, which for him also is hard, but I think I'd give it a shot to ask you. Can you talk about Maya? What exactly is it? What is that veil that essentially covers us from realizing this truth?
Shankaracharya raised this question. Now, to whom is this Maya? And then he himself responds, whoever is asking about it, it belongs to that very subject. Meaning, nanu kasyam avidya, like to whom does this ignorance, because whether or not ignorance as a category, Maya as a category exists, so anybody who is ignorant, to that person, there is that ignorance. Ignorance as such does not metaphysically exist. Or there is this ignorance, 1 kilo of ignorance, it doesn't happen like that.
Right.
So there is no absolute substantial nature of ignorance as such. For whoever is limited, that very limitation is what we describe from outside, that, okay, he has this limitation. So, but from the Trikasaiva perspective, we are not explaining Maya or Vidya in the same way. What they are, first of all, from the Advaita Vedanta perspective, they said Maya as a category is the factor that limits and projects what is not there, and what is it as such is it doesn't have its own characteristic, otherwise it will cause duality. But even without it having its own characteristic, it limits the subject. This is an exposition for describing how the finite beings act. What is stupidity? Stupidity is not something metaphysical entity. Stupidity is just a description of the mental state of a stupid person. So the same way. But we are not, from the Trika perspective, we are not saying Maya Avidya in the same way. What we are saying is mati parichinati. We are going back to the roots. Maya is a Sanskrit word. Sanskrit word has verbal base and prefixes and suffixes. In this particular case, mang means to measure, to delimit. So what is Maya? The Maya is the mechanism of delimitation. So Maya is the process that allows to delimit entities. So let's say consciousness. That consciousness allows me to delimit my speech. Whatever the thoughts I have are limitations within consciousness, because consciousness as such is not conditioned in the form of those words. As I'm talking with you, I am delimiting consciousness into the mold of those words. I'm at the same time seeing you. I'm delimiting my consciousness into particular shape. I'm also conscious of the mic in front of me. I'm delimiting my consciousness into this. So this delimiting factor is Shakti, power. That very delimiting factor or Shakti is what we are calling Maya. Therefore, this is also real because there is a mechanism that allows the infinite to be finite. And that is why the way we interpret Maya is not the same way as in the Advaita Vedanta. It's just illusion, it's not real, or it's how do you describe stupidity. So that's a very different definition than the way we are describing here.
Shifting gears a little bit, because you have a lot of knowledge about the science of Tantra, can you talk about exactly what is Tantra in the context of self-realization? Like, how is this approach, the Tantric approach, used for liberation? Do you think there are a lot of dangers of misusing this path without a real teacher or guru? And have you ever met in your experience any real Tantric masters or agoris who actually have practiced this for self-realization?
Yeah. So you raised a very good question, particularly relevant because in our society, East and the West, there is so much of misgiving as it comes to the word Tantra. Many people, when I engage Tantra and I go to India or Nepal, and they're horrified, oh, this man can do magic or something. And in the West, there is such a deep connotation with some sex cults or rites, and then they simply put the word Tantra for anything they want to do, debauchery, like whatever the drinks or eat, whatever lawlessness, anarchy, chaos. So what Tantra is, we have to go back to the foundation. Am I rejecting everything that is happening in the name of Tantra? No. I mean, these particularly later Tantras, but there are some remnants of Tantra from the beginning that incorporated magical things. But what happened is people took that 1% of what they wanted and gave up that 99% of the whole Shastric, the disciplinary approach. So we have 92 agamas. All these agamas are the foundation that we call Tantra, broadly speaking. And these are the disciplines for training people towards self-realization. These are the disciplines for people to train their mind to actualize reality. The agamas come with both philosophical insights and the meditative practices. So there is also theory and practice at the same time. Yes, I have met many teachers. Otherwise, I would not be defending these teachings. Like when I was 16, I met my Guruji, Prem Chaitanya Brahmachari, and I met many other teachers in his guidance, and I lived with him more or less closely, but not living in the same house. But I lived under his guidance for more than 14 years, getting training. And so what I felt is this is a rigorous training of the mind. And are there pitfalls? Yes, of course. And are there false expectations? Many people who are not trained for what it is for, towards self-realization, they have all the false expectations from Tantra. If I get this mantra, I'll do something else. I'll make the deity come and God knows whatever, So because in Tantras, there are these passages that epitomize this mundane, exercises, achievements, goals.
Right.
But they came in a broader text of realization, and they are not rejecting the power. So let me go back to one simple example of electricity, power, energy. You can use that energy for God knows how many different things. The light, this microphone for the sound, the heater, the cooler, the AC, the cooker. So many different ways we are able to use that energy. But what is energy as such? It can manifest in whatever the form you so desire. What is power as such? Power is dangerous because many powerful people do a lot of harmful things.
Right.
But it is wrong to say that power is inherently dangerous, because only with power that you can make a difference. Even the speech of the great sages is power. They have the power to make a difference just by speaking something. So therefore, there are many forms of power. The best form of power is the speech itself. You say something and then people think twice. You bring people to a rationality, to make them think in their own insight, in the heart, to question the ways they were raised to believe in. So this is also power. When I'm teaching my students, that's also power. Mm-hmm. So power is not just a brute force, to impose something, to kill somebody. That's not power. That's the corrupt form of power. So what it is now then, what Tantra does is it allows you to recognize that you are powerful. Because mostly what is happening is we are telling people that you are a sinner. We are telling people you cannot do anything. You are making people handicapped, not telling them that you actually can do. And we are telling people these are the ways to do things. We are not teaching them the freedom, the philosophy of freedom. And so therefore, what is happening is we are imposing all the rules so the social norms can be working. And why we are imposing these rules? So the society is governed by some people assuming power. If we give back this power to every individual, what would that society be like? Every individual would feel empowered. That is our philosophy. We want every subject to feel that whatever the power that person at the center feels, that same power resides in the heart of that subject, subaltern, downtrodden, domesticated, abused, subjugated. And therefore, because everybody is Shiva.
Right. Yeah.
And everybody has the same power. You see? So therefore, what Tantra teaches, it's very liberating. What Tantra teaches, it allows you to recognize your role in your society. Because it's not saying run away from your role. It's not saying the world doesn't matter. It's saying the world does matter. Your presence in this time and space does matter, because only when you embrace your role, you can recognize yourself as Shiva. As long as you are not willing to embrace your role in the world, you are running away even from your finite being. There is no hope of you to recognize yourself as the infinite, boundless Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah, that's very clear.
Yeah.
That's a very good definition of Tantra, because I think even in India, and of course, especially the West, it is very misunderstood. So that is very important. I'm down to my last two questions. First, I would like you to touch a little bit about Abhinavagupta, who was a very well-known philosopher and mystic. So he talked about, I think he had some unique insights about the Bhagavad Gita, specifically about the different paths to liberation.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what his view on that was? The reason I'm asking that is because I know there's a lot of different interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita itself, and kind of how all those paths of Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga should be used together, or what the significance is. So I would love if you can share that.
So yes, you brought a really excellent question going back to Abhinavagupta, who I think was the foremost philosopher that represents the heart of India. Why am I saying that? Is when we are dragging like a representative of the entire civilization, and we are making philosophers out of the people who are simply rejecting the world, there is no real progress to be made. We cannot help subjects to embrace their role as citizen. We cannot help people to acknowledge their role in their life. We cannot guide subjects that they are free to choose their path. He is the first philosopher of freedom. He is, globally speaking, he is the first philosopher who grounded freedom within the self, not freedom against, a positive picture of freedom. He is the first philosopher who grounded that the absolute nature is dynamic, that whatever change happens does not eliminate the true nature of being. Because before that, many other philosophers say, if the Brahman, the absolute, were to change, then it would be transitory. Anything that changes is momentary and it's not real. No, he says no. If the water is flowing, that doesn't make that the water doesn't exist, because it's already flown from the top of the mountain down to the valley. The water is flowing. What does it matter? Our reality is flowing. It doesn't have to be stagnant. Past, we are thinking only in the past. For Abhinavagupta, he said this is dynamic. You don't have to only, whenever we talk about culture, civilization, we are stuck in the remote past, mostly never existed, So because we are given the type of philosophy where we are not allowed to be dynamic, we are not given this spontaneity. He is the philosopher of dynamism, Shakti, embracing your own Shakti. He's a Saivite, but that Saivism of Abhinavagupta is not bereft of Shakti. It's a Shiva is not separable from Shakti. He was an aesthete. He wrote books like commentaries on Natya Shastra, on dramatology. People think he's just a yogi.
Mm-hmm.
Why would a yogi want to write a book on drama?
Right.
Why would a yogi want to write a book on how to make love? How would a yogi want to write a book on different ways of communicating? Gestures of they're like nuances of how we communicate about love. Abhinavagupta wrote a commentary on Dhanyaloka called the Lochana commentary, and this is all on aesthetics. Mm-hmm. So he was a yogi. He gave you the manual in Tantra Loka for the whole practice of Tantra, but he gave you the deepest epistemology in his book Ishvara Prativijna, Vimarshini and Vivriti. Vimarshini, all these extensive commentaries upon the work of Utpaladeva. So Abhinavagupta was so full of life that you just have this one simple imagery based on his disciple recalling the classroom. Somebody even made a painting out of it, that there is this Abhinavagupta giving his deepest teaching, and his disciples are taking notes sitting in one corner, and there is some students playing lute, and there is one beautiful woman dancing. Like, imagine a classroom where a yogi is teaching meditation, and there are some dancers also, dancing.
Right.
So this is challenging our old model of spirituality. Why would he need a dancer in the classroom? I don't think I would dare invite a dancer in my classroom, and then I'm teaching philosophy there, So it is like an 11th century traditional master already did that, because he was trying to teach us something profound about life, trying to teach us profound about being in the world, enjoying the world in its fullest extent, while at the same time not missing the bigger target of realizing the way it is.
That's a beautiful, wow. That is the goal, because to sum up this conversation, that's kind of my last question, is that I want you to leave the viewers with one or two pieces of advice on exactly how to do that, like really manifesting this realization in their day-to-day life. So basically, to be able to realize one's true nature can obviously let go of a lot of the suffering that we have self-created for ourselves because of identification with all these things. So can you leave our viewers with some point that you think will help them relieve, in a way, in Advaita Vedanta, as they call it, be Jivan Mukt and be liberated right now here?
So the first recommendation I have is for spiritual people. So stop this category. You don't need to think you are some special person, and this is the mental of spirituality is not helping you. It might be actually a hindrance towards the actual realization, because what is spiritual, what is not spirituality? We are in the same world, we are eating the same food, we are breathing the same air, and so in this we are all together, and my realization cannot be completely separated from your realization, and me thinking that I'm completely separated from you because you are like a lowly person. I'm the spiritual enlightened master. So for the spiritual people, my only single piece of advice is just, this is a bigger problem than the rest of the world that is just drinking and enjoying their life. Because when you make a bondage out of liberation, when you define yourself, all these definitions are like shackles, like ropes to tie yourself. And then for the normal people, we are constantly telling them, you cannot, like people are, most of the fundamental problem begins with addiction. And many people who have come to Tantra, actually I've been meeting with people, and why they come is because they are told you can do whatever they like. And then they are just trying to justify their own inhibitions in the form of drug, substance abuse, and so on. Like they want to feel okay, this is okay. Tantra says it's okay. No. So you should not need any text to justify your deeds.
Right.
And you are being helpless, and you are trying to justify your limitations. I want to drink, and I want to practice Tantra because Tantra says it's okay to drink. That's just wrong. Why? It's because you are not seeking freedom from your habits. What Tantra actually says is that you are free. And you are trying to justify your freedom in your habitual limitedness. I just love it, being limited. Fine. But have you recognized the other pole of limitation, that boundlessness? And then you come back and embrace your role as a limited person, and I'm okay with that. But as long as you are not opening yourself to that boundless nature, whatever you have appropriated yourself as is wrong. And therefore, Tantra has to allow these subjects to recognize their freedom. Even in the physical space, when we are, I meet so many students, and they are told, or they are convinced for some reason, that they can never learn. As a teacher, I have worked all my life. I've met hundreds of students who are so convinced that they cannot learn something. My first role as a teacher is to convince them that they can. You see, when we are telling people you cannot, we are making them immobile. We are making them handicapped already. If we are recognizing Shiva in them, then there is a Shakti power within them. Then how can we say they cannot? And then we have to allow them, these subjects, to experience the progress of their subjectivity, to assume the role, a creative role. What type of education we are giving to our subjects? We are making them cunning. We are making them smart. We are teaching them how to invest their money in a proper way so they can be rich. How can you be rich? I have to be poor for you to be rich. And we are making such sophisticated engineers that they know how to make bombs. They know how to hijack the planes and kill thousands and hundreds and thousands of innocent people. We have lost the perspective from the basis of humanity. We are depriving their divine nature. We are giving them false expectations and false obligations, whether through the books they have read as the holy books, or yet another holy book that we are teaching in the name of sciences in our colleges or schools. We are not allowing these subjects to blossom the best they can. And that's where we need to work together. That should be our goal, to re-educate people to embrace their reality, their agency, and their freedom in the way that helps us co-create and cultivate a beautiful world together.
Thank you so much. It was such a great opportunity having you here. I know for a fact that the listeners will definitely benefit from this conversation because they are very serious to actually realize their true nature and be free. So thank you so much. And please keep doing the work you're doing because it's helping so many people.
Thank you, Amira.